Welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper, and today I'm going to talk about the worst way possible to bug out, in my opinion. When I talk about bugging out, I talk about pretty much the reaction to a major catastrophe or geopolitical situation where all of a sudden you've got to deal with that situation. It's life or death. For a lot of people, it's, beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. That type of situation. Now, as we get further and further from the beginning, we get closer to the end. A lot of people are aware of certain things that are going to happen as we continue towards the end. So a lot of people are preparing. Prepping gets a bad rap, and a lot of people mock and ridicule it. I've got a whole video about laughing at preppers that I did with Mr. Zach Bauer from over at An American Homestead. I'd recommend checking it out if you lack a frame of reference for how people kind of turn the whole thing into a mockery. And really, to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. Things are going to happen. The world we live in is not stasis. Things change. So what I like to do is hope for the best. But while I'm hoping for the best, I plan for the worst. If I plan for the worst and hope for the best and wind up somewhere in between, I'm going to be so far better off than a lot of people out there. And I encourage other people to do the same. Maybe not the extreme worst case scenario ever, but think about how bad it could get and then do something to protect yourself against it while you hope that it never gets there. You'll be better set up for later anyway. As people are preparing right now, there's a lot of people in small communities, maybe it's just the locale, and sometimes it's the community of the mind, like-minded individuals coming together, having meetings, setting up different things. Sometimes rather than just having a family plan of action, and I highly encourage you to have a family plan of action. If there's a fire tonight in your home while everyone's sleeping, where's the meetup spot for your family? What's the exit routes from your building? What do each and every member of your family need to understand to safely get away from danger and safely regroup? What is the plan? Have a plan in place. But besides just a family plan, a lot of communities are as well, and some of them are going extremely, I believe, intelligently. There's stuff we see in scripture, like captains over 10s, captains over 50s, captains over 100s, and I know some people doing stuff like that. Or there's groups of 10s, and sometimes the groups of 10s meet up as, groups of 50s if they've got something to, take care of, and then you can delegate because there's a head over, or a captain over each of those 10s, so you just got to reach out to 3 people, and all of a sudden you have 30 people available. Do you see how that's wise? And then within those communities, a couple cool different things. Number one, you can learn different skills from different people. There's some folks I know, other side of the lake, that want me to come up and show them a bunch of wild edible stuff. I have certain skills in my head. I'm trying to put more in there, use those skills in my head to put food in my mouth that nourishes my belly and my body. And they're like, hey, can we have some of that knowledge? Could you show us some of the things in our area that we can eat right now, that we can feed our family from the woods? In fact, I was just talking to 3 other individuals earlier, and some of us went on a kayak trip down the Buffalo River last year. And it was amazing. I mean, we do good fishing usually. If there's fish to be caught, we can usually catch them. So we had a wonderful fish dinner. And there was so many wild edibles everywhere. The red buds and the chickweed and the cleaver and just all sorts of stuff. And I was talking to my friends. I said, why don't we just go and not bring food? Maybe just bring some life straws or some sort of, water purification, and not even really bother bringing food and water. There's dangers associated with it, but I think it's going to be a good practice, and if we have a start point, end point, go overnight, it's not going to be that big of a deal. People can make it through a couple days without food or drink. But we'll plan for the worst, hope for the best, wind up somewhere in between, and maybe just try something like that. But with the skills, people who have certain skills can teach others, from gardening to medic stuff, how to use a first aid kit, sometimes how to use a firearm, how to forage, how to dress animals. All sorts of different skills people can share. How to garden. I don't know if I mentioned that one already, but gardening is important. And then you have a diversity within that group where if certain people are really good at this, then maybe you don't need to focus on that. And even within your community, you know, I know certain people are really good at growing sweet potatoes. Certain people are really good at growing something else. So rather than the guy who's not so good at doing it, trying to struggle through, he says, look, you're really good, just grow some extra. And I'm really good at this, I'll just trade you some of this. You know, when working within a community, bartering, trading, that stuff's important, okay? We have people as well in the process of these things going through different trainings, okay, gaining those skill sets, or doing drills. You know, what happens? One of my favorite ones was, what if there's a power outage? So people just pretty much shut off the power to their house, to their property, and tried to figure out how long they could go and what were the weak points. For a lot of people, it was water-related issues. That's so cool. One thing that I consider right now too is that we kind of have a training drill right now in a lot of ways. A lot of things going on in the world. Some places it's no mask, no sale. One day it'll be no mark, no sale. So we have a practice. We have an opportunity to run through certain scenarios and gain skill sets and stuff like this. Now, pertaining to the overarching title and purpose of this one, the worst way to bug out possible. What I'm about to share is hearsay because I only heard somebody say it. I wasn't there. But, and this is in no means to make anyone look bad or things like that, but I'm just saying that if this is your plan, get a new plan. Get a new plan. And I guess there was a group of people in a city who was talking about preparing for the future, and the future being a negative future, things going wrong. And one of the ideas that was shared was, well, you city folk better make friends with the country folk, that way you got somewhere to go when things get bad. I've talked before about how, you know, we cannot really avoid others in our preparations, that, you know, other people kind of gets factored into a degree. But if your main plan is that if things get really bad in the city, you're going to have built up these really good country folk relationships ahead of time, that you can go crash at their place for the apocalypse and they'll take care of you, I'd be careful with that. I'd be very careful with that. And a couple things, I mean, look at any disaster movie, apocalypse movie, other things. What is the death trap? What is the worst place to be? The cities. And I think that they actually downplay it quite a bit. You know, they normally say, oh, we got about 48 hours to get out of the city and then it's going to get terrible. I bet you if it really goes down, you're going to have a bunch of very opportunistic people who are going to be, oh, I'm smart, right? So I'm going to jump the gun, literally with a gun, and I'm going to go for it right now. You know, that rather than waiting 48 hours for everyone to be pretty much gun to your head, knife to your throat, give me your stuff, I want it. They're going to be doing that right away. Right away. I don't think it'll be like, oh, well, I'll just cut off work early, take the, half-hour commute home, maybe swing by the school and pick up Jimmy on my way home, meet up with my wife at home, and we'll start packing then. And then hopefully by this evening or early tomorrow morning, we'll be able to, head out of the city. Don't bank on it. Don't bank on it. You know, the cities are going to be the death traps. The cities are where you have a high concentration of people who, in that type of scenario, kind of end time stuff, they're not going to have a lot of useful resources. You know, they're just simply not. So it's going to become very desperate very quickly. And I expect in the country, I expect there to be a lot more deer, for instance, wild animals, wild game shot and wasted because people are going to freak out and they're going to try to shoot a bunch and they're not going to process it all properly. They're not going to store it all properly. They're not going to put it all to use. And a lot of it's going to be wasted. Well, in the city, I can see people fighting over cases of water and having half of the cases, getting broken open, spilling, cracking, all that water, you know what I mean? Just being wasted because of selfishness and greed. I see that stuff, happening. It's going to be the extinction level event. The ELE is going to happen in the city where it's going to be a very short amount of time and nobody's really going to be left alive doing very well. So I don't know how much writing on the wall needs to be written before some people wake up, but people are waking up. Not too long ago, I met somebody from California. They just moved out this way. They said, yeah, I just got here from California a couple months ago. I said, wow, you had to wait for like all the writing to be on the wall before you reacted, huh? And it was kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, but also there's a lot of seriousness to that. So my thought is a far better way to do this, and it isn't going to work for everyone, but rather than just, hey, we'll make friends with country folk and head over to their place if things get bad. Even a lot of people have specific bug out locations of their own, you know, and they're like, okay, if things get bad, we've got this amount of time, we're going to get our bug out bags and we're going to head out to this bug out location. A better plan than just going and crashing at somebody else's place who happens to be your friend and is more set up than you. A better plan than that, but I think that the best plan, if people can adjust some things in their mind, first of all, but also in their lifestyle, is to live at your bug out location. Live at your bug out location. Set yourself up where A, you've removed yourself from that high population density city type environment, if that's where you find yourself, and relocate yourself somewhere that makes more sense. Somewhere that you can set yourself up better to actually bug out in place. I'm not talking about shelter in place, you know, but you should be prepared to shelter in place too. But to bug out in place, that if things go really bad, grid's down, all hell's broken loose, you know, it's partly cloudy with a chance of apocalypse, that you are going to be okay. For me, first of all, rather than crashing at a friend's place for the apocalypse or having a bug out location, think about how much energy you need to expend to be able to get somewhere. Number one, a lot of people are concentrating on vehicles for transportation. Why? Because there's not a lot of people running around and walking around these days. Think about it. I've known some people that the vast majority of the walking that they do is in their own house or to their vehicle. You know, that's about it. And they'll drive to work, go sit at their desk, go back to their vehicle, drive home, and then sit in their house. You know, the door to the vehicle is about the exercise they get. If everyone's in a panic and things are going crazy, you're not going to want to be on a freeway. You're not going to want to be on a highway. You're not going to want to be in a traffic jam. You're really not. And some of that traffic jams may never unjam, you know. It's going to be difficult to get there with a motorized vehicle. It's going to be difficult to get there on foot, just because of how much more effort it takes, how much slower you go to go on foot. Depending on the situation you live in, depending on how far, you know, if you're not living at your bug out location, how far you got to go, bicycles could be a pretty good idea as well. You can carry a lot more on a bicycle than you can on person. You can head a lot faster, especially if it's downhill. Things like that. Pretty maneuverable, better than a vehicle, you know. Doesn't go as fast, but it has its pros and cons. You're going to use a lot of time and effort and energy traveling somewhere. And then, of course, you're going to be very limited with what you can take with you. If you think about even guns and ammo, heavy. By the time you're dealing with a bit of it, heavy. If you are at a base or a fort or a place and you're just defending from there, it's kind of easy to sit there with things around you available. If you're exposed and mobile and out in the open, it's going to be a whole different scenario. You might need a lot more just for cover fire and other things in that type of situation. No, not everyone's going to be running around with guns when things get bad. But if that's kind of part of your plan, it may be difficult to be mobile and be equipped if that's what you're relying on. And also, if you think about, you know, food, medical supplies, other things, it's limited what you can take with you. If you have to go to your bug out location from where you are, you're going to need quite a bit of stuff. If you're planning on crashing at somebody else's house for the apocalypse, it's going to be quite a bit of stuff that you're going to need to take care of you. If you don't have a deal worked out with them ahead of time, where they're hanging on to buckets of, whatever and your supplies for you ahead of time, boy, friends might turn into enemies kind of quick when things get tight. When somebody only has enough to take care of their own family for a certain amount of time, you could turn a life and death situation, meaning that you're unprepared and gonna die, but they're prepared and gonna live, into a death and death situation, because there's just simply not enough going around to go around, because they weren't planning on you being there. This was your plan to go crash at their place for the apocalypse. It wasn't their plan. If you work something out ahead of time, fine, but make sure that the supplies, the things that you want. I'll tell you what too, I've covered this before, but I don't plan on making it out of here alive. Okay? I don't plan on making it out of here alive. I'm thankful for that. I have somewhere much better to be once this body perishes. But what I am into is avoiding foolish and avoidable death. If there's some foolish ways to die that aren't that hard to avoid, I have no problem avoiding them, especially for my wife and children. And besides being able to, have, I'm not talking about a massive stockpile, I'm not talking about other things, but to have something on hand where you could eat for a while, where you could drink for a while, or even if it's just a temporary horrible situation of power outage, grid down, martial law, no order, things like that. If you got to wait something out, it's better to have something there. It's better to be sitting on something that can take care of you for an extended period of time. One nice thing too about leaving the city, heading out to a more rural environment, establishing stewardship over a piece of property, is then you can have recurring food supplies. Perennial plants do that. With a little bit of effort, my annual garden plants do that. My livestock, my poultry, they do that. I think 5 chicks hatched out this morning. That's just because we had some Ozark nest egg gourds, the wild gourds from around here, that were on a nest, and one of the hens decided to go broody on there. So we'd been collecting all the eggs, but then when we went broody on some gourds that weren't going to hatch, so my daughter gave her a handful of eggs. Now we've got 5 new chickens. We can eat those later. We killed a bunch of chickens recently. We're still eating them. We like that stuff. Eating, something we try to do on a daily basis, usually a couple times a day, if you know what I'm saying. Set yourself up, or it's not just do or die. And one thing as opposed to, just crashing at somebody else's house, that if you're bugging out in place, if you're setting yourself up, you have a knowledge of the area. If you've got to flee from where you spend most of your time to go somewhere else, even if it's, your own bug out location somewhere else, you're going to be less familiar with that area than the place that you are all the time. So if you're able to live at your bug out location, you can have a much better idea of the area. When are certain creeks running? If you're in an area where they're seasonal, where can you find certain things out in the woods? What are some of the local resources you could have where you can pretty much get to and get back pretty easily, because you're not, traveling through crowds of people, heading through the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, that type of stuff. And one thing about just preparing yourself where you're at. Let's say there was some horrible disease out there. And I'm talking like a horrible disease out there. I know a lot of people think there is one right now, but I'm talking about something else. I'm guessing that the vast majority of people that you personally know in your life, that you knew, say in 2019, I'm guessing the vast majority of them are still alive right now. You know what I mean? Some have probably passed from there, no matter what would have or could have or didn't happen or wouldn't have happened. The vast majority of the people would still be alive now, and you would have lost some no matter what. But I'm saying, what if over the course of a year, half the people you personally know would die from some sort of disease? What if we were in that type of situation, where if you actually left your home, you might not come back alive? Or if you came back, You might be able to pass something on to everyone else, and you all could die. What if we were in that type of situation? Are you actually set up to be able to say, you know what, no, I'm going to call into work today because I've got a funny feeling about this. And I might have to stay home for a couple weeks. I know not every job is like that, but sometimes your life could be more important than your job as long as your job and your identity in your job is not your life. Personally, who I am to God, who I am to my wife, and who I am to my children are my top three identities. So whatever I do to make money doesn't matter much to me. Doesn't matter much to me. Even here and now, because we have a debt-free home, because we have a debt-free property, because our cost is low, I've got the insurance costs, the electricity cost. I think I had to pay 12 cents in property tax last year. The bills are low. So to stay home, eat something, that's not a lot of effort. That's not a lot of financial needs either. So it's not, boy, I'm so paycheck to paycheck, I'm so many bills, I'm so much debt, that if I take off a couple days of work, we're probably going to lose the house. That's going to force your hand in that type of situation to go out and potentially compromise yourself. Expose yourself to things you're not wanting to if there was a horrible, life-threatening disease going on out there in the world. Don't put yourself in that type of situation. There's a reason that God tells us in the Bible that debt is a curse. Don't choose curses for you, and don't choose them for your children. So many people, the big go-to for so long is, I just want to send my kids to college. Why? Why? What's God want them to do with their life? What do they want to do with their life? Do they even need a degree for that? Do they even need $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt for that? Will they even get a job doing that if they took on all that debt and went to that college? I was watching an old video interview with Rich Mullins, and he said, people are so worried about going to college. And, which college does God want me to go to? He says, I've been to a lot of colleges. I don't even know if he wants you to go to college. And then he made a very interesting point. He says, hey, guess what? If God wants you to go to Egypt, he can provide you with 10 jealous brothers who hate you and sell you into slavery. That's what happened to Joseph, right? It's not always about just the American dream, massive amounts of debt, trying to look great and impressive because it's a facade. Again, I have a better place to be. You guys should too. You should too. You should seek to be reconciled to your Creator through the blood of His Son. And you should begin to walk with Him, learning that His ways are best. That way, when you don't make it out of here alive, it's still going to be fine. But while you're here, try to avoid foolish, unnecessary, avoidable deaths. Don't just live so foolishly that the second your GPS goes down on your phone and you can't find Walmart because my GPS isn't working on my smartphone, that then I die because I don't know where food comes from. Don't live in that type of situation. Please be wiser than that. And again, back to the main purpose of this. Don't just think, I'll make friends with some country folk so they can take care of me and I can be their dependents. I'll pretty much be their giant children if things get bad. Are there people who are going to be kind and who are going to care for others and who would be willing to? Yeah, 100% there's going to be. And are there other people, if you try to show up on their land, they're going to try to shoot you? Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I would highly recommend read the writing on the wall. If you think that you're living somewhere that's not going to be good to be in the future, if you get out now, in the future you won't be there. One saying I have is live in such a way in the present that when you get to the future, you don't regret your past. Hope you can hear that. Live in such a way in the present that when you get to the future, you don't regret your past. Do a couple things for yourself. Become a little more self-sufficient. Just because you're not dependent upon the government doesn't mean you should just be dependent upon other people to take care of your simplest, most basic needs. You know? And guess what else? If you've got food and clothing, learn to be content with those things. Learn to know that's enough. I got fed. I wasn't sunburned. I wasn't freezing. I had food and clothing. It was good. Thank you guys, especially those of you who watched till the end here. I appreciate it. Hopefully there's some words of wisdom in here. It's just, when I heard that that's what some people were banking on, that was the bug out plan people had, it broke my heart. It really did. Give it up now if it's not going to matter much in the future. Learn to wean yourself off of some of the I don't want to say pleasantries of this life, but you know, the frills, the lavish things, the extras, the convenience. I just want to be a simple man, living with my wife and children, enjoying a simple life. I don't need all that stuff, but again, be content with who you are. And if you're not, you can change. I'll see you guys next time. Pop out.